Now, this was not a headline I was expecting to read today, chat, which is Rachel Reeves saying, "I'm sick of the mansplaining on how to be Chancellor of the Exchequer." Yeah, I have some thoughts. Chat. I think the biggest thought I have is that, well, whilst it is almost certainly true that Rachel Reeves has experienced sexism in her role as Chancellor that previous male Chancellors have not faced. I think that's probably certainly something that is true. And actually, I think an even bigger factor is classism, insofar as people describe her as being Rachel from accounts. I don't think she's a very good Chancellor, but when the worst Chancellor of all time, which is George Osborne, had zero qualifications to be there, at least she actually worked in something approaching the economics profession before becoming Chancellor, whereas George Osborne got a fucking degree in modern history and then became a journalist because he went to fucking Oxford. Like, no, that's not the acumen and job experience necessary to be Chancellor. I don't think Rachel's a good Chancellor either, but it's clear that people have a certain gripe against her specifically, you know? But what mansplaining is, for those who don't know, is a 2016 era feminism term, which I think has some applications for when men act as the authority on a topic when speaking with a woman who is qualified in that topic. The difference, of course, is that having a political position is not the same as having a professional position. Criticizing a professional position when you don't actually have any experience in it because you reckon you're good at it is something that happens to women a lot of the time. People saying these things, usually men. And that is a perfectly reasonable thing to describe as mansplaining. When you're a political figure, and it's not just about competence in the role, it's about ideology, it's about goals, it's about utility, people can openly disagree with that because there's a realm of ideology there rather than a level of expertise or competence, you know? It's totally different. Someone criticizing you in a position as Chancellor than in your professional position elsewhere. So this is really not a good use of the term mansplaining. Just say, people are being sexist against me, because they have been. But the idea that everybody who disagrees with you is doing it because they feel like that they know how to be Chancellor better than you. I mean, they just disagree with your political choices, as is every citizen's right in a democracy. The idea that we shouldn't be criticising the Chancellor of the fucking Exchequer, lest we be termed a sexist, is nonsense. And Ash Sarkar, friend of the show, and not in an ironic way, she actually is a friend of the show, hence why we both work for Novara Media, was on LBC speaking to Sheila Fogarty about this very, very odd headline today.
We can talk more generally in a second about what's to come next week in the budget, or what you hope will be included in the budget. But just a word before that on this incident involving Rachel Reeves. I mean, there's no other way to describe it, really, getting very stroppy, narky about being questioned. What do you make of that?
So this was as part of her profile with The Times this morning. And as I want to do, I have a little peruse of all the news websites. And I saw that what they led with was a quote from her saying that she was sick of being mansplained to. And I thought, okay, they've taken this out of context. She must be talking about people who are explicitly disparaging her because of her gender or something. But she wasn't. It was framed as being frustrated with people telling her how to do the job of being Chancellor of the Exchequer. And I just thought that this was such an egregious abuse of the language of feminism. Feminism doesn't mean that people can't criticize you for having a really powerful position and perhaps making bad decisions with it. Feminism means that you're not going to be disparaged on account of your gender. And regardless of whether you're on the left like me, or the centre, or the right, there are plenty of quite legitimate reasons to be annoyed at Rachel Reeves. And I just thought that this was indicative of the slightly bunker mentality that seems to be at the top of the government, which is when people are angry at them for decisions that no one is responsible for but them, they try and find a reason to make it everybody else's fault.
And that's fundamentally part and parcel of the idea that the Labour right have themselves, that governance is easy, and the only thing that's been wrong with the country up until now is that the bad Conservatives were in charge. The bad, incompetent Conservatives, the ideological Conservatives were in charge. And as soon as you get the competent, pragmatic, sensible centrists of the Labour rights in charge, just by pure competence alone, they'll be better than everybody else. When actually, no, politics is about ideology. It is about public consent. It is about democratic mandate. And people not fulfilling that, or doing things that weren't in the manifesto, or being coy about your ideology before the election, or indeed just having an ideology that lots of people don't like and implementing it as part of policy is how politics works, right? You can't just competence your way into being a good chancellor. You have to have the right ideas and the right goals, and that's what people are taking an issue with here. And it's this level to which that they have this level of conceit in terms of their aptitude for the role, that any amount of criticism from the public gets passed off. Oh, it's sexism. Oh, it's people who don't know how hard it is being chancellor. We're the ones who are sensible, competent, and you're putting us down because you don't know. We're better than you. And it does have this huge sense of entitlement and this huge sense of delusions of grandeur over the reality of what being Rachel Reeves as Chancellor of the Exchequer is. Again, I have seen plenty of sexism directed at Rachel Reeves, and it's worth calling out. Likewise, I saw racism directed at Rishi Sunak. That doesn't make them not shit politicians.
Do you think it reveals a nervousness, a sort of overwhelm is the wrong word, but a kind of, at the end of your tether with people saying, what are you going to do? Tell us now. Is it going to be this? Is it going to be that? And she's just saying, back off, I'll make a decision. And yet has used being a woman and being, quote, I'm sure you've been mansplained too. I certainly have in my job over the years. I suppose the strongest way to counter that is just to continue to be good at your job, hopefully.
I mean, true. Unfortunately, though, both Rachel Reeves and Sheila Fogarty suck at their jobs. It is incredible for somebody as totally bereft of any talent, such as Sheila Fogarty, to go, well, I've been mansplained to. I mean, what you probably have been is criticised for being a moron, because you are one. Sorry to say that, you are stupid. And that's not because you're a woman, by the way, Sheila, before you say anything. I think that all the LBC presenters are mostly morons. I'll give a pass to Natasha Devon, potentially Matt Fry. Everybody else, bell end.
Well, and I think this is a problem with politicians sometimes, is that they get very tetchy. And I understand that being criticised is annoying. It gets under your skin. That's why I'm not a politician.
Well, you are on social media. I am on social media. You don't go on X and think everyone's going to say, you're fantastic, because that's not what happens, is it?
Oh, no, I mean, that would be a really unreasonable expectation.
Yeah.
But I understand that it can get under your skin.
Yeah.
There seems to be a particular problem with, and it's not just Rachel Reeves, Keir Starmer gets this way as well. He gets a bit narky when he's confronted by criticism. And Rishi Sunak did it as well. They were really bad at appearing relaxed or able to take
He got narky. Rishi Sunak got narky about the non-dom stuff, didn't he, if I remember correctly? He seemed to find that.
The thing that Keir Starmer got narky about was being berated by Beth Rigby, perfectly legitimately as well, over the issue of gifts. And he was like, well, Sky News invite me to their parties. You get invited to other people's parties. It's just a normal thing done in politics. I'm like, well, Beth Rigby isn't a public servant. You are. You're the one setting policy and laws. Therefore, it's important that you have high levels of integrity. That is not the same of journalists. Obviously, the journalists in this country have no integrity. And Beth Rigby has been photographed with Morgan McSweeney being able to brief to her. Like, she's hardly got her hands clean of this kind of stuff. But the standards of the Prime Minister are supposed to be incredibly high. And Keir Starmer has failed to meet those very high standards. And him getting visibly upset and tetchy over legitimate criticism shows you, again, the internal beliefs of the Labour right, which is that they are better than everybody else. They live in this world. It's the world that they belong in, and anybody who criticises them just doesn't get it, doesn't get them, doesn't understand just how wonderfully excellent they are at politics, doesn't recognise their political acumen that they've spent years and years crafting. And I'm like, well, most of you are idiots on the Labour right, do you just have delusions of grandeur?
Very irritating. Yeah.
And I think that this sort of speaks to a certain entitlement. There is a sense that they feel entitled to power and not the sort of scrutiny or accountability that comes with it.
And I guess she's going to have to face this next week for sure. I guess as well, if you think of previous chancellors, going back to people like Ken Clarke, Jeremy Hunt, Sajid Javid, and remembering the various chancellors we had one after the other under Boris Johnson. The point is that quite frequently we journalists sit them down and examine the choices they've made and examine what they are doing to the economy, what they're doing to people's lives. It is literally the job description.
It absolutely is the job description. And I think that this is something which is quite important to understand about Rachel Reeves, which is she's clearly a clever woman, But I think that one of the mistakes that she makes is that she's led by tactics and not strategy. And the best way I can explain the difference is tactics is about winning the battle, strategy is about winning the war. So part of her tactic when she was in opposition to differentiate herself from Liz Truss was to say, okay, the OBR gets to do these forecasts, and I'm really going to be led by what the OBR says. Which means if you're Chancellor of the Exchequer, you've basically said, these guys at Aquango kind of hold the whip hand over what I'm going to do as Chancellor.
You're saying
Another
I'm a
tactic.
technocrat, not an elected politician representing you, the British public.
These people who nobody really knows than I am to you, the British public.
Yeah.
Another way, which was tactics rather than strategy, was in order to get past, the brutal media that can be part of contesting a general election. She said, okay, no income tax rises, no VAT rises, no corporation tax rises. And then we had this weird wobble over the last 2 weeks where there was some briefing that maybe income tax would go up, and then there was a U-turn that wasn't really a U-turn because nothing had been made public. And it seemed like she got all of the flack for putting up income tax without any of the actual good stuff, which is the money. And it sort of seemed to me, as an outsider, that maybe it's wiser to sort of build a consensus about where tax can be raised, that it should be the people with the most wealth, with the highest incomes, but 98% of people are going to be protected from increases in tax. That would have been the better option. But again, she was prioritizing tactics over strategy.
And you can...
I mean, again, because political decisions were made in the run-up to the election to hoodwink the public. Oh no, we're not going to raise taxes. There's no conspiracy of silence. I don't know what you're talking about. And then they get into government and go, oh no, we found this black hole. We're going to have to raise money to cover the black hole and also secretly raise enough money to cover up the conspiracy of silence money that we're going to forget about as well. Because that happened, right? It was 22 billion for the black hole and 18 billion that was identified in the conspiracy of silence by the IFS. And then she raised 40 billion to make sure that there wasn't a real terms cut in funding for some underprotected departments.
I think...
No, sorry, do continue.
I was going to say, I think that this is a feature of the Keir Starmer government, and that's why so much feels bitty or short-sighted, where they're constantly having to go back on their word. It's because they're always framing things in these very short-termist ways rather than what do they want to achieve as a government at the end of 5 years.
Yeah, and I think an interesting example of that, it's not quite this a parallel with the
No, Ash, they have 5 missions. They're going to make the thing better. Thing good. Change bring. Better bring. Change bring. Good thing. That's really clear. And I know it's clear because before saying that jumbled mess of words, Keir Starmer said, let me be clear. So it must be clear. They're going to get the highest growing economy in the G7. How? Dunno, but they're going to do it. That's their goal. That's their strategy, is just grow the economy somewhat. No idea of what the economy might look like, who might get the gains of that growth, what society will look like at the end of 5 years. No, we're just going to grow the economy for the sake of it. Number go up equals world more gooder. Clearly they have a really great strategy. Hey there, if you enjoyed the video, make sure that you like and leave a comment. That helps the video out in the algorithm. If you subscribe and ring the bell, it'll let you know when I go live. I stream every day on YouTube and Twitch. You can also follow all of my socials down in the description. And if you want to support me in a more financial manner, there's a join button for membership to just 99p to be a member on YouTube, as well as a Patreon, and there's some merch there as well. And hopefully I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.